Phillip and David, thank you so much for joining Jessica and I in the Fit Aviators Club podcast. My lovely lady has told me so much about both of you in this incredible application you guys are doing, and I can't wait, honestly, to try it out myself. I've seen a lot of the progress that's been going on with it, and it looks totally amazing. So, on behalf of Jessica and I, we thank you so much for joining us here today. And we'd love to start off with just how did you guys get started, and what was the motivation behind this Planeta application?
Yeah, thanks for having us. Phil, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So thanks so much for having us, Fernando and Jessica. We really appreciate the time and being here, and we're really excited to tell you guys about it. So Planeta actually started off as something totally different. Basically, it came out of the pandemic when David and I, who worked together for years as producers, talked about starting some kind of business. And originally, the concept was very much like a virtual reality travel center resort kind of thing. And even though it sounded very exciting and futuristic, we quickly realized that that was not really solving anyone's problems. So we decided to kind of figure out, like, what a real big travel problem is that people have. So we started off by just doing a ton of interviews with anybody who would talk to us, lots of Zoom interviews, and just like, hey, what do you do when you travel? What's the problem? And we figured out that people the thing that they think about most when they think of their trips is the stuff that they did. So even though you spend a lot of time organizing your flights and your hotels, you don't typically think about that unless it was an amazing hotel or an amazing flight or a really horrible flight. But the thing is, people spend like the least amount of time in terms of planning the activities that they do, and we're like, people could really use help with that. And particularly finding things that are interesting to them wherever they go, because the quality of your interactions have to do with finding people and places and things that you're actually interested in, as opposed to being just told, well, here's the tourist stuff that everybody does. So we knew that that was something we really wanted to focus on, and we also discovered really early on in the process that flight attendants, would be the logical place to start, because flight attendants travel when nobody else is traveling. Flight attendants are have that job, and pilots have that job, both of them, flight attendants and pilots, because you guys love travel more than you know most other people do, and that's sort of a priority and a value that you guys have. So we thought, here's people we can really help kind of get the most value out of what their job benefits are with all the travel benefits. And so it really kind of came together in a really logical way. And so we were like, we really need to work with flight crews, and we really need to offer them the value of being able to find stuff that's interesting to them wherever they go, instead of just like, oh, here's what everybody does.
Right. And
Right on.
obviously,
Yeah, that's incredible.
yeah, and obviously, everyone
Go
can
ahead,
use
guys.
Google and what's out there, but what we wanted to do is refine the options that we are suggesting, so that we're eliminating kind of decision fatigue, and the paradox of choice, because we all know if there's a million choices, it's going to be more challenging to pick what to do. But if you're kind of told, hey, this is what you would like, and we give you a handful of things, and you trust us to recommend the things that you're going to like, it'll be a lot easier and a lot less time consuming to figure out what to do in whichever city you're happen to be in.
I agree. I'm just really glad you mentioned the decision fatigue making, because that's honestly one of the things that's probably hardest to do. I think the only person that I've seen like pull through even a long day of flying and still find something to do and it be really awesome is this lady right here. She is the queen at just doing that. It's like, but when I'm tired after a flight, and the last thing that I'm gonna try to want to do is like, oh my God, let me look at now all the things that I gotta, all these plenty of decisions to be able to pick something to do, right? And sometimes they might get overwhelming. But for some people, it's not like that. And Jess has a really great ability of doing that. But the majority of people, I would say, there's that fatigue of having to make a decision on what to do, unless you plan your trip out before you even start it. But you can plan as much as you want, and then all of a sudden your trip can change completely, right? And now you're at a new destination where you didn't even plan for. And I think that that's really great. Jess, would you say that that's one of the things that's pretty hard for crews to be able to just, when you get to the overnight, what to do.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes not doing anything the easier option. And then people feel as if though they're not getting the most out of their job or they're not getting the most out of their overall career, since some people are in it for the long run. So, not having to really decide exactly what to do. And not only does the app help you pick things, it sets it up for you. So, step one, step two, step three, go here first, then here, and then there, right? So, I think that picking what to do and then putting it together makes it even harder. Picking what to do is already hard. And then putting it together, I mean, like people can like not do that. It's just like really hard to decide what to do first instead of A, B, C, or D. So yeah, I think it really helps. And I think that crew members are, I've used this term a bunch of times with you guys, they become slam clickers, where pilots and flight attendants both, they get to their room, they slam that door, and then they click it, which means they lock it. And then they just stay in there like a hermit and don't do anything, which they have the option to go out, but sometimes it's nicer to have it already provided for you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I think it's one of the toughest things, and obviously since Jess and I started dating a little over 3 years ago, my sense of wanting to do something a little different has obviously grown. So I think that, when you have someone that is that influential, I think this application can kind of do the same. It's of influencing people to, hey, you don't have to go through this fatigue of trying to decide what to do. Steps 1, 2, and 3 can do it for you, and now it's just much easier. You don't have to think that much, right? That's primarily the goal of this app?
that's 100%. Yeah, I'm sorry, David. If you don't mind me grabbing it, I'll
Yeah, go
reach
for it.
for it. But yeah, that's the idea, is that to give people a few options, because decision fatigue is a real thing, and we've all experienced, when trying to find something to do. First of all, there's just like you said, googling a bunch of stuff or looking on TripAdvisor or whatever other source you're going to go. You have to like look through a bunch of stuff, and one risk is you don't find anything that's interesting. You're like, oh god, this is all stuff I wouldn't want to do. The other risk is that you find too many things. You're like, it's kind of like when you're like channel surfing or I guess streaming surfing these days, and you just find like too many options. You don't end up watching anything because you're just like, oh, I can't even. I'm just going to go to bed. So we wanted to make sure that like, hey, we get to know you. We learn enough about you to make recommendations to you that are things that you would care about and you would be interested in. And then we give you a few options. We don't give you like 100,000 options. We give you like, okay, here's a couple or three of each of those things that are we think would be most relevant to you, and hopefully it helps you go like, oh yeah, that sounds good. I'm pretty tired, but I would like to go try that tiki bar or whatever.
Yeah, and really going back to when we started to ideate about this app, the heart of it was, I'm, as much as I love to travel, I allow my wife Corey to do most of the planning for me, because as a producer, I plan everything from soup to nuts. And by the time I personally am set and have finished a project or something, and we want to go on vacation, the last thing I want to do is plan an entire vacation. And my wife's busy as well, and so sometimes we just go to a destination and don't have a plan. And when Phil and I were talking about, hey, what if we built an app to help people find things to do, we started talking about Phil's experience in Japan and my experience in Costa Rica. And I'll speak about my experience in Costa Rica, and maybe this will prompt Phil to share his story in Japan. But really, I think this is the heart of it. And I met this man that goes by the name Jungle Man, and Corey and I didn't know anything about the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, and we had things in mind that we liked and what we wanted to see, but we didn't really know exactly how to do it. And the hotel introduced us to this man called Jungle Man, and we said, "Hey, Jungle Man, we want to do X, Y, and Z," and he really ended up being our tour guide for that entire week and showed us everything that we wanted to see. in a very personalized manner, right? One of the things I wanted to do was see sloths, because the last time I had been at Costa Rica, I had seen one in a zoo that was sad, and I didn't want to do that again. I wanted to see them in the wild. And he's like, oh, let me take you through the neighborhood. I'll show you exactly where to see one. You'll see one up close. Like, don't touch it, but you'll see one up close. He takes me to one of his buddies' houses, and right out front in the front yard, in this hedge, there was a sleeping sloth. Like, if I reached out, I could have just pet it, right? Obviously, we don't disturb the animals sleeping or at all, but and that day I saw probably 17 sloths and like 35 howler monkeys. And they were just doing their own thing. They were in the wild, right? So it's that experience, that personalized experience, that feels natural and bespoke, that we really want to kind of pass along. Because everyone can go to a zoo, and we can look up a zoo or a Starbucks coffee shop, but what about the more nuanced experiences, right? How do we get people to those things?
Yeah, that's cool. So you're basically trying to get the application to give you an experience like how you had in Costa Rica, and I'm sure how Phil's going to share now in Japan.
Correct. That's the eventual goal.
Yeah. And okay. So I lived in Japan for 3 years. So I'm trying to remember, David, what specific Japan experience, because I got a lot of stories about Japan.
It's the one where you were. It was the all-nighter that you pulled with. I think it was the soup house.
That was Malaysia, actually. So yeah. So when I lived in Japan, I traveled around Asia a lot. And there was one Christmas I went to Malaysia with a friend of mine, and well, actually I went before him because we had our vacations didn't overlap perfectly. So I went to Malaysia, and I was traveling around Malaysia by myself. And there's a city called Malacca that's on the Indian Ocean side of peninsular Malaysia, and it's really cool. It's this old city that's been there for hundreds of years. It's very multicultural, very very interesting. But the day that I got there, I had taken a bus from the whole length of Malaysia. I had gone from Penang, which is way up by Thailand, all the way down to Malacca, which is not far from Singapore. And it was Christmas Eve, I think. Christmas Eve. And so I arrived, and I stayed at this guest house that was run by this Chinese guy and his wife, and ethnically Chinese. They were Malaysian, but it was very international. This guest house had this very international feel. So they had one of their employees was from Morocco, and another one was from another country, et cetera, et cetera. And so they had this Christmas dinner that they organized for everybody, and so everybody made different kinds of ethnic food for this guest house, and it was amazing. So and all the guests that happened to be staying there, then we all came and enjoyed the dinner, and there were lots of drinks flowing. And the other thing that's important to know is this guest house also had a bar. So you basically entered through the bar to get into the guest house. And so there was this real kind of I don't know if you guys remember the TV show Cheers, but it's just hey, it was very much kind of welcome. You walk through the bar area, and it was very, even though they'd never seen you, they were very welcoming. So
it's a great entry.
It was awesome, yeah. And then but I was totally, and so this is when I was really young, but I was really tired. So I was I have dinner with everybody. I have a couple drinks, very nice, and I go to bed in my room. And then I woke up, probably around midnight, and I had to go to the restroom. So I got up to go, but they actually had restrooms at the end of the hall, and it was super, super long line. Because of course everybody had been drinking and having a good time. So I went down to the bar, and the owner was behind the bar with a bunch of other ethnic Chinese gentlemen. And I was just hey, is there another restroom? That one upstairs really backed up. And he's yeah, you got to go outside if you want to use it. So I was okay, whatever. So I went outside, I came back in, and on my way back in, I was headed back up to my room. And then the owner's hey, where are you going? Where are you going? I was oh, I got to go to bed. I'm really tired, man. I spent I've been up all day, and I took a long bus ride. And he's like, "Hey, I'm 75 years old, and look at all these guys. They're all old too, and we're staying up. You gotta come drink with us." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Come on, come on, come on." So I was like, "All right." So they twisted my arm, and I went and I sat down at the bar with them. There's probably about like
Peer
a
pressure.
dozen guys there, and they were all switching between like English and like a Chinese dialect and something else. They had like 3 different languages going on. It was just crazy. And I don't remember a whole lot like that happened because there was, you know, more and more drinking that was happening. But I remember there was
Sure.
one guy's name, not the owner of the bar, but another even older gentleman who was probably in his 80s. And all I remember is his name was Hua Sang, because every time that he was a drinking game, and every time someone said his name, everyone would stop and go, "Hua Sang is the name, and drinking's the game," and you had to down whatever you had. So it was just
Oh,
like
wow.
it got really blurry at a certain point.
Yeah.
And then like about 3 o'clock in the morning rolls around or whatever. They're like, "Okay, we're going, guys," and it's like, "What?" And they're like, "Yep." So we all kind of like we all got together and we piled into a couple of cars, and then we like drove out to like this suburb of Malacca, and then we had like tripe soup, which I had never had before, like this Chinese tripe soup. And
Wow.
I don't even really like tripe that much, but I was at this point, it was just like that drunk food that's like, this is amazing. And uh,
Really? Wow.
it was
I don't
just
even
this
know what
great.
tripe is.
You talking about tripe, like the intestines of an animal?
Yeah, tripa or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's crazy.
I would have eaten
yeah,
it, not even known.
yeah. It was
Well, when
just
you're
very,
drunk, I guess you just eat whatever.
I wouldn't have asked. It was like, oh, it looks like normal food.
yeah, it's just chewy. But it was a really great experience. And then I always remembered that moment because it was like I had this really like authentic, like welcoming experience, like, you know, that I got to really dive into the local culture. And I that, you know, I had a passion for travel for a long time, but that really kind of made me realize, wow, the value for me in travel is getting off the beaten path, hanging out with local people, you know, getting kind of soaking up that local culture. And I know Jessica is definitely the same, because I've definitely, you know, watched your YouTube channel and your Instagram, and I know that you really love that, like kind of soaking it up locally. And so that really kind of drove that. And when David and I were first ideating and coming up with, you know, well, what is Planeta going to be, we were like, we really want people to have those kind of authentic experiences, because it's just so much richer than, I mean, I love Disneyland. I'm not going to lie. I definitely go to Disneyland. And, you know, I definitely don't mind, you know, doing touristy things, but also like, I think the things that I'm going to remember, you know, at the end of my life, I'm not going to think about, oh, that one time I went to Disneyland and I rode Indiana Jones. I'm going to think about like this kind of thing. So
You'll think about the people you met in line, which gave you like this crazy experience and then brought you to do what they did or something like that. Yeah. So I
straight
think
up.
that with Planeta, it's great because it does give you like different ideas of things to do and things that are more outside the box. You can still do like the touristy things like you said, but it kind of leads you down the path of not just doing that one thing. It's like, okay, go to the touristy thing first, but then after, like, go do these things that are a little bit different but close by and kind of help you like open your eyes to the different experiences that you can have, including the more basic experiences, as you would say. And to tie it all into crew members, it's nice because crew members are so used to doing the same thing over and over at their layovers. I mean, people that go to the same layover have a routine. They go to the same place for happy hour, the same grocery store to pick up their favorite local strawberries, and then they go to the same place for a restaurant or just anywhere. And they even fly with the same people sometimes. So it's just all the routine that kind of gets you kind of bored of the job and complacent with just your overall activity in the day. So this app is a really great way to get people to try new things, up and moving, and just kind of making the most out of their life.
So I wanted to add, you know, what's wonderful with AI kind of coming into play is that our goal is to integrate AI as soon as possible, so that as we start to use the Planeta app as a community, it suggests better and better things to do, and really helps with what you're saying there, Jessica. Like, you know, even with suggestions, you know, there's only a finite amount of things to do within a certain city. But I think with AI coming into play, it's going to really, really help diversify the suggestion model that we already have, and it really help improve people's experiences and introduce people to really eventually other people, right? Because it's not really It is introducing people to experiences, but we also want to, introduce people because at the end of the day, it's about human connection.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes the experience with somebody else that much more significant and that much more memorable. Even as little as the activity is, if the right person is with you, it just becomes that much more significant. Uh, so with this integration of AI, not only is the application going to suggest what to do and make it easier for people to do it, but they're also going to connect them with others as well. Is that what the long term uh, goal is of the app as well?
You
Yeah.
take this one, Phil.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that is the long term goal. So originally the idea was to connect people, like to connect local people who shared interests with travelers. So that was really that was the basic idea. It's like, hey, I'm
Cool. Okay.
you know, yeah, if you're into rock music, you're into dogs, you're into skateboarding, we want to find you people locally that are into those things, and then it could help you find stuff to do there locally. But then when we, kind of, when you're building an app and you're launching a company, you kind of have to do what they call your MVP, which is your minimum viable product. So it's got to be like the most streamed down, slimmed down version of that. That still helps people, but that doesn't
Mhm.
have the whole thing. And so that's where we really kind of like, well, let's do this version of Planeta that really allows you to just find things to do, and easily, without a lot of friction and without a lot of decision fatigue. But definitely the longer term plan is 100% that, to help connect you with people, to be able to, and then also to use the AI to kind of help local people find things to do as well. So for example, the one great use of AI is that it helps you do your job better. You don't have to get in the weeds as much, and it helps do a lot of the grunt work you wouldn't want to do on your own. So if somebody who wanted to be like a local tour guide or a local travel agent, you could use the AI to help you a lot, to move you way down the road, and being able to connect with people. And there's going to be a whole new set of jobs and industries that are going to emerge from that. So that's definitely one thing we wanted to kind of we want to leverage that and be part of that trend.
That's really great. I think the combining both of those, like I said before, it creates a much better experience. Jess and I had a really awesome experience in Annecy, France. You remember that? That was incredible for her birthday. You want to tell the story? You remember it?
Like we met those guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it was my birthday. And the night before, we went to go watch a soccer game. I don't remember who was.
Yeah, it was a Champions League. It was Real Madrid and Liverpool.
Yeah.
This is like 2 years ago.
Yeah. So we basically, just last year.
No, that was 2 years ago.
Getting old. Okay. So we went to this game, and then we're just talking to this random girl made a comment towards me, and then this guy that she was with, we started talking, we started chatting about like just what we were doing. One was from Scotland, one guy was from Ireland, I think somebody else was from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, long story short, we were talking, and I was like, okay, we're renting a car and we're going to Zermatt tomorrow, which we're in a really small city in France, which was called, when you say it so I don't mess it up.
I can't remember the exact name, but it was a very small town in the area of Mont Blanc, Chamonix. So that's in that very small town. We were at this. This is where we were at the bar, and then they were like, "Hey, no, don't go to Zermatt. Go to Annecy."
Yeah. And then they were like, and I was like, no, we're going to Zermatt. We're going to drive to Switzerland. It was going to be like 4 hours. And the guy was like, listen, I get it. You're set on going to Zermatt, but I just don't think it's a good idea. You should go to Annecy. And if it's your birthday, you can have like a drink by the water. It's a beautiful city. It looks like a fairy tale. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. I immediately looked it up and I was like, oh my God, Fern, we're going to Annecy tomorrow. Like, it's beautiful. And he was like, what did I tell you? And then we did. We went. It was gorgeous. We kind of spent like the morning because Mount Blanc is basically a ski resort, but it's also has a bunch of hiking in the summertime. And we were there in the summertime. So then we went hiking in the morning. We went to Annecy at night, had a beautiful like dinner, some drinks. It was just gorgeous to walk around. Really felt like we were in France, honestly. Like not your typical Paris, Eiffel Tower, France, but just like more, I don't know, like small town vibe, but also beautiful, like French music playing, like the romantic vibes. It was great. And then the next day we went to Zermatt because I was like, we're definitely still going. But it was a great like change direction of our itinerary that we had already planned out.
Yeah, and I think the everybody at the bar there, the game was over at like I don't know, maybe 11 p.m. Real Madrid had won, so I was super happy, and the people from England, they were cool too, even though Liverpool lost, but or I think it was Liverpool, but it was one of the English teams, and we all stayed talking and drinking after that, and it was getting ready to be midnight, which is going to be Jess's birthday. So Jess went to the bathroom, and right around like midnight, and I told the guys, "Hey, it's her birthday. Right at midnight, can we get the whole bar to sing happy birthday for her?" And they were so cool about it. Like as soon as she came out of the bathroom, this one guy rallied everybody up in the bar and just started singing happy birthday to her in French and English. It was just amazing. And but that's the kind of stuff that makes that it made that moment so much more memorable. It was the people that were there too. Like Annecy was beautiful and Chamonix was beautiful and everything, but meeting those people that night was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's that human
Yeah,
connection
without
again,
them, we
right?
wouldn't have had a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I want to ask you guys this: how did you come across Jess? Like, did you guys see her through social media, through her YouTube channel?
It was actually through mutual connections. So it was a one we had on our initial group of people that we pulled together who were helping us out. We found a local woman in Los Angeles who was a freelance concierge, and basically what her job is to like help people find things to do when they come to Los Angeles. And so she just, rather than working for a hotel, she just did it on as a freelancer. And then she knew somebody, I believe, who knew Jessica, and then that's how we got connected. So we basically were just like, "Hey guys, anybody who knows anybody who's a flight crew, please connect us." And amazingly enough, almost everybody knows flight crew. Like that's one thing I did not expect, is that like pretty much everybody I know or knows somebody, and we were able to
Exactly.
talk to lots of
Yeah.
flight crew. So
No, that's cool. Do you think? Do you think? Okay, before you met Jess, did you have any idea that this is what the lifestyle of a crew member would be like? Did you have any guess at like how dynamic it is or how last minute things can change? Even the environment, because I know Jess provides so much of that information that it helps with the app.
okay, David, I'm gonna let you grab this one.
So, yes and no. So, yes, so no initially, but we had actually, before we met Jess, interviewed, I don't know, 60 to 70 flight crew members, just
Wow.
to ensure that we knew that we were solving a problem that was actually a problem, right? And so there was a lot of learnings that happened throughout those interviews. One major learning that we both were amazed about was that flight attendants don't actually get paid until the door closes on the plane. It's terrible, actually. But yeah. So as we're speaking to those flight attendants, we do start to learn. Oh, they're slam clickers. They're uh, they're not all just kind of crazy partiers that go out to drink and you have your slam clickers and sometimes they land somewhere and instead of actually going back home, they'll take a non-rev because they'll be off for the next week or so, and they'll fly off to Jamaica or something. And to us that was very interesting because it's like, great, well, so you land somewhere and you just on the fly decide that you want to go somewhere else, and where's there the time to plan your trip if you're just like, I'm just gonna go to New York today. And so that's where kind of the idea started to, because we didn't this idea wasn't fully fleshed out until we spoke to those flight attendants and flight crew, right? we had a kind of an inkling of what we wanted to do, but as we started to speak to um, people in your industry, it was and the more that we started to understand the lifestyle, that's where we were like, oh, we may have something here.
It's definitely from like what we see on TV, right? It's not always, with the shows and the movies of how they describe flight crew. It's really not that is not the same, at least, and things have changed a lot over the years. Now there's different kinds of regulations. There's different types of like how long you can fly for, minimum rest time and things like that allow people to either be able to go out more or maybe have to stay in the night at the hotel because the layover is so short. The case maybe a couple, like more than 10 years ago, you would hear about like how everybody would have like 3 or 4 day layovers in the Caribbean in St. Thomas or something like that. And that was a whole different kind of lifestyle. You did have a lot of time to plan things there if you wanted to. I'm sure there's people who just wanted to stay at the resort all the time. But, 10 years down the road in the future, who knows how the crew lifestyle is going to be. So I think that it's one of those dynamic lifestyles in a profession that, like many professions do, it constantly evolves and it constantly changes. And the cool thing about technology and with applications is that you will too. Your application of Planeta will, when that time comes, will continue to adapt. But it's also to have a person on the inside like Jess giving you, all the details that you would need, because from all the companies that we have worked with that are not in the aviation industry but cater to traveling or cater to something in aviation, they often require a lot of information from the person who's in the industry to relay a bunch of info back, because if not, then it's just really hard to make business decision and or even a concept that you may want to introduce in the app.
A good example of this is basically when we were talking about different scenarios that people might use the app, or different layover times that people would use Planeta. And one was, a lot of flight attendants will do these trips where they land early in the morning, around 9 o'clock in the morning somewhere, and then they'll fly right back that night. And they have like a day layover of 12 hours. And I think I remember one of you being like, oh, awesome, that's plenty of time to do things. And I was like, yeah, it is, but they're going to have to sleep in that time. They're going to have to get ready. They're going to have to like do their everyday necessities, their morning routines and their night routines, everything before they fly back with the red eye. So then a lot of these layovers, as though they seem like so much time to the average person that doesn't just lay over in these cities or that want to make the most out of that specific layover time, it's totally different, right? So which is why I like the idea of having an app that can just give you quick little nitbits of the city quickly. And if you wanted to decide to do something, you don't have to fully commit to a whole day adventure or a whole like specific like museum or something that's going to cost money or be more expensive or going to be far. It's just an easy way to have the option at your fingertips if you did decide to, depending on how long your layover is and what you already have planned.
Jess, can you walk us through from the perspective of the person using the application? Like, let's say you're planning to go to a city, or you got to a city. Let's use LA, for example, right? What's the process like? Can you take me through the app, on what the steps are? How do you prepare for it? And then how do you navigate through it?
Yeah, so basically you would just download the app from the App Store. And then once you have it, you would create your profile, which is just your name, female, male, and telling you, and then it's going to ask you what exactly your interests are when traveling, like your social interest, your food interest, and a few other things. Then you go ahead and click from a pool of options, and then the app will kind of like memorize that for your profile. Then you say the amount of time that you are available to basically be active, right? So if you're going to be there from 12 in the morning or 12 in the afternoon to 12 in the morning, maybe you'll put like a different time frame there. And then you'll say how many people are with you and then where you are, right? And then you'll have them create the itinerary based on what you already chose out of the pool of options. And then they're going to pull places that are close to you in the city or in Los Angeles. and then you're going to click like a few that you're willing to do. So it gives you a little bit of options, right? And then you pick the ones that you like the most, and then it tells you exactly where to go, how to get there, the distance. It even tells you like the reviews that people have left in the past. It tells you how far it is from you specifically, if you wanted to like go there first or go there last. And it has other options that are related to that specific location that you clicked. So it really goes into depth on why you're doing that, as in like if it's going to fit for you, and then like option B with that specific option that you clicked. And then you just kind of like create the itinerary and then go from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. You also have the option to not create an itinerary and just like you said, Jessica, say, you only have time for one thing and you don't want to build an itinerary for that 24-hour period. You could just literally pick one thing from the kind of a la carte menu at the bottom that surfaces options that you would like as well. So if you only have time for, a nice dinner, a mile away, we surface that, and you can pick that too.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. No, that was really great.
I've been practicing.
Well, on your social media, there's posts about it and stuff like that. So I think you've gone over that script a couple times already.
Yeah, definitely.
No, that was really great. I think that was really great. No, that's really awesome description. I think like even without having to see it, just by listening to that, you can already kind of picture how the application goes. And nowadays all these applications are very user friendly, so it's not not that difficult to hit the screen a couple times to set up something that you want to do. And something that I love about this is obviously how it's going to relate to your health and fitness. And the whole point of as Jess and I were talking about this before the podcast, is getting people up and moving is a super important thing. And instead of just hanging around in the hotel all day or in your room, even if you're at the hotel, you have access to a gym, but that's not, a lot of people even don't do that. But going to do something fun that gets you up and moving, walking around, maybe climbing some stairs, or whatever it is, going up and down some hills, it really adds to the great value of just being able to get some exercise in. So I think that's really, really great.
Right. And, if you are into fitness, per se, I mean, we do that is an option to click, right? So we will suggest yoga studios, and Pilates studios, things like that are easy kind of one-off class situations, that fit your profile, right? So not every yoga studio has the same vibe, or gym even, right? CrossFit studio versus traditional.
That's awesome.
Gym. So that is an option, if we're talking about the fitness side of things.
Yeah,
That's
it's actually an entire section. When you're picking from like different pools, there's about 4, and each one kind of caters to a specific aspect of your travel experience. So fitness and health is definitely one of those pools that you're picking from, which I personally love because I'm all about doing things outside and doing things that keep me healthy, because some of these hotel gyms suck and I just can't be bothered to go to a gym with one treadmill and a few dumbbells.
Yeah, and they're the size of a closet.
Yeah, that is the worst part.
Yeah, I'd rather definitely do something more outside. So, I mean, that's really great. Hey, David and Phillip, I'd love for you guys to share, where can we find more info on the app? Is there a website you guys have besides going on the App Store and getting the app? Do you guys have a website? You guys have anything where we can look into it more, maybe in a social media?
Yeah, you can find us on www.planetaapp.com. You could also find us on Instagram and TikTok, at Planeta App is the handle. And then you could also download us on both iTunes Store or the Apple Store and the Google Play Store.
Awesome. Well, David and Phillip, thank you so much for your time today and really getting to explain to us this awesome application and the beautiful stories that came about to bring in the ideas to kind of bring that kind of experience out to other people through an application. And Jess, thank you so much, my lovely lady, for being on this.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. Well, thank you guys so very, very much. And I'll be excited to download this app and start using it myself.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, have a
All
good
right.
one,
Take care,
guys.
guys.